Hello friends, this is Dr. Kaustubh Bondre and we are here to discuss the important points from today's newspaper, The Hindu. It is 25th of May. Let us see what is important in today's newspaper. The first news that we deal with is a carryover news from yesterday or even before that. It is Sterlite Copper, Vedanta Group company in Thoothukudi. There was firing on the protesters and it has become a political hot potato now. What we concern with is the Water Prevention and Control of Pollution Act 1974 and Air Prevention and Control of Pollution Act 1971. These are the two acts that you need to be prepared with. This issue is important from environment point of view and ethics cases, because these situational questions will be given to you regarding how do you handle crowd and should they be fired upon, right? And how do you follow authority or not, right? So this is the important areas. The next news that is important is about Donald Trump. There's a keyword, Singapore. Anyway, when it comes to Singapore, we need to be aware that Singapore is an entry port, geographically very crucial, state of Malacca. So this geographical part, also its urbanization, the water purification model, it's very important. Now coming back to the news, the issue is important about NPT, right? Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. So the context is denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula, completely dismantled its nuclear test site. So North Korea has done that, and now the aim is denuclearization. Now this deal, as well as how Trump is dealing with Iran, also raises an issue about NPT. So you need to prepare this agreement, and along with it you need to prepare the CTBT, Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty, and FMCT, which is not yet signed. After this, we move on to the next news. This news is about Kashmir, and now the issues that are raised here are important points are the border issues between India and Pakistan, the role of security agencies, various agencies operating, the radicalization that is seen in Kashmir as a result of extremist Islamic teaching that is being given in various madrasas, then terrorist financing. We have raised the issue of FATF, that is Financial Action Task Force, where India has dragged Pakistan. Next, it is the role of external forces, that is especially Pakistan and Saudi Arabia, or the radical people from these countries in making the situation of Kashmir more volatile. So here, the important news are that the takeaways are that overall India is also realizing that extremely intense and tough stand on Kashmir would be a bit counterproductive, because it will lead to alienation of people. So now the view is that Hurriyat should be roped in for talks. India should make efforts to hold a dialogue with Pakistan, because that is the only way. When Kim can talk to Trump, and then when Obama spoke to Hassan Rouhani in Iran to sign a deal, we can also speak to Pakistan or Hurriyat for that matter. The next issue that is important is Rohingyas, because they have settled in Jammu. Then the issue of communalism. I spoke about radicalization. Next, it is the deep divide between the Hindu-dominated Jammu region and Muslim-dominated Kashmir. You know, Kashmir, the state of Jammu and Kashmir, it is Buddhist-dominated Leh or Ladakh region, and then it is these two areas which have become very, the relations have turned sour or bitter. Next, we move on to the next news. It is about Rajasthan, but the news is not important here. The keyword only is loan waiver, because the question in the exam can ask on, even the economic survey spoke about loan waiver being an ethical hazard or moral hazard. The point is, you give loans to people, the banking sector gives loans to people, and then you give a waiver. So people learn a habit not to repay what they have borrowed. So this is unethical and relates to GS3 agriculture. After this, we move forward. The next news that is important is about Assam and the infiltration that is the cause of concern in the state of Assam. This infiltration is supposed to happen from Bangladesh. So the keywords here are Assam Gana Parishad and the Bodoland People's Front. So these were the organizations which are fighting. Now they are part of the government. Now the Citizenship Amendment Bill 2016, I've been repeatedly focusing on this since a couple of days. So this is very important. You have to prepare this nicely. When we speak about Assam, it is the National Register of Citizens that is being prepared by the government to identify the illegal immigrants and with the aim to deport them. Just to make things clear, you need to be also prepared with Foreigners Registration Act, that is 1980s Act, that we govern the deportation procedure. Regarding Assam, what is important is the Assam Accord that was signed by Rajiv Gandhi. So that is also very crucial when you discuss immigration and Assam. Next, these are two terms that are being used by government: smart fencing. So electronic eye is being used to identify infiltration, And then technical barriers where there are river stretches, so they'll be put up so that this will be floating detection devices to prevent illegal immigration. The next news that is important is about again the organization United Nations Environment Program. This is important. Second, this is about the state of Maharashtra and the government's electric vehicle policy. So government has brought in this e-vehicle policy very recently. States plans, so the plans are given here. The only concern that has been raised in this article is the state presently lacks the infrastructure that is required for this e-transport, so charging stations. So we don't have these facilities. So first you have to work on the infrastructure before making people or before making it mandatory for even the state transport buses to get into the green mode. The next news that is important from the point of view of GS3. Forget about what the actor is asking a PM. What is important here is the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals Act 1960. You need to study this act. And then it is like environmental legislation. Here the law is to protect animals from cruelty, but look at the penalties. They are outdated penalties, and so a revamp is needed. The next news is about again the Nipah virus that is in news, but we will not discuss that. This is Science and Technology, paper 3. So the organization is important, and overall look at the approach. Not a major outbreak. Health Ministry is clarifying. Now as an officer, you are many times you are given situational questions that what happens when such and such thing happens in your district. So this is a clear attempt by the officials to prevent panic in the people, so that you communicate with the people, address their concerns, and guide them how to prevent this disease. So that is better. So communication from the side of government and especially experts is very crucial. The next news that is important here is the Clean Air India initiative. So this relates to IR because this is with Dutch then startups because their role has been highlighted here, and issue of environment from your syllabus. So this is a campaign, Clean Air India initiative. So such keywords are important. UPSC can ask this question in mains as well as prelims. It's a collaboration between the startups of UK and even India. Now this keyword is next keyword is sustainable development goals. These were signed in the summit 2015, sorry, and then these are to be followed or fulfilled till 2030. You need to be aware of the 17 SDGs because they can be used in your GS as well as essay whenever you are writing answers. So apart from that, the air quality network that India has launched, certain drawbacks are given that 80% of India is not covered by this data coverage. The issue of pollution in Delhi, the reason being burning of paddy straw in Punjab, neighboring states of Punjab and Haryana. Now this Indus Impact project, so this is also important keyword, and then what it seeks to do, that is mentioned here. I would request you to go through that. The next issue that we deal with is again with India and Netherlands. This is GS2 IR. Every time a foreign dignitary visits, we make it a point to condemn terrorism, especially that originates in Pakistan, and that is necessary for stability in South Asia. So we have also signed 51 agreements. So all these points are important from exam point of view. The next news is about sports. This has been a very positive development that this government is very serious in promoting sports in the country, right since school level. So the scheme Samagra Shiksha, this is important from point of view of exam. Next, what they plan to do, sports education is an integral part of curriculum, and the government also seems to focus on learning outcomes. So various surveys like ASAR have been highlighting that in our schools, we just enroll students, but the quality of education that is being given is not up to the standards. So this is something that is very crucial. Anyway, I would like to highlight that wherever you feel the points are important, you can pause the video and take note of them. Next, it's about the message given by our respected president. The news is not important here, but see, I've highlighted essay and environment. So these are the areas where you can use these points. So nature does not compartmentalize. Its instinct is integrative and holistic. Now this is something that you can apply to the present state of affairs in the country also. We are a diverse, a country which has very high diversity. So we need to have this instinct of integration and holistic vision for each other. So mutualism is very crucial. That has been mentioned here. You can also look at this, right? Are we mindful of our responsibilities for our future generation? So he's speaking about sustainable development goals. Now sustainable development in itself means that we have to take care of the environment so that we hand over the environment in in a rightful state to the future generations. Next, for exam, these anniversaries that I have highlighted here are important because UPSC is fond of anniversaries. The questions are framed around them. The fourth industrial age, this is also a keyword here. You have to prepare on this. Next, fraternity and compassion are written into nature's DNA. Now, this is something that we need to highlight, that because you are very well aware that the Indian culture overall throughout ages has been such that we have lived in harmony with nature. So this DNA is our DNA also. Sense of compassion, fraternity, civility, and mutual dignity. So this is something that our constitution also highlights and protects. So there is a constitutional backing to all these values. Next, there is almost a cosmic bond. So see, such statements, such paragraphs are important because you can use this in examination. The next news that is important is about Russia, the present summit, informal summit between the PM of India and the Russian president. Before this, there was an informal meeting between Xi Jinping, the Chinese president, with our respected PM. So this is a very important article that helps us understand how India is trying to balance the national interest with respect to foreign policy and the present geopolitics. The point is, India was drifting towards United States. However, now we have realized that when Trump is at the helm, we are not very sure about which path America goes in. And America, anyway, in foreign policy is unpredictable. Rather, it has double standards. Many times it strikes back. So, Russia has been one of the most important supporters of India since our independence. So, India's existing dependence on Russian military hardware, these are our interests. The new US law, now this is something that can be asked in the exam, countering America's adversaries through Sanctions Act. Now this CAATSA is very important, which may hamper the collaboration between India and Russia. Next, Russia's recent military exercises and helicopter sales to Pakistan. See, we moved closer to US, Russia started moving closer to Pakistan and China. So this, we need to be very sure about this. The present instability because of the behavior of Donald Trump. The informal summits are like Sochi and Wuhan, they can break the ice and reset the relations. Now, organizations are part of your syllabus. Shanghai Cooperation Organization, the summit is going to be held in Qingdao, and the BRICS summit is also nearing. It's in Johannesburg. India and China will cooperate in Afghanistan, but at the same time, India and Russia will coordinate in Indo-Pacific. Now, here India is trying to balance, trying to be part of this travel in two boats at once. The cornerstone of foreign policy of any country is national interest, and that is why we are trying to balance the competing powers in this present geopolitical scenario. After this, we move on to the next news, which is regarding the present changes that the government has brought in the proposed for the insolvency and bankruptcy code. This code was brought in November 2016 to hasten the process of winding up of failed businesses. Yesterday also I had spoken about this, that in India initially it was very difficult to start a business, and it was even more difficult to close down a business because of the government regulations and red tapeism. So this exit mechanism that was highlighted by a number of economic surveys, that we need an efficient exit mechanism. More than 80% of the startups are bound to fail, but then we should allow them to fail so that the economy becomes more dynamic. So this is the process which was started in 2016, insolvency and bankruptcy code, revolutionary measure. Now the proposed measure is to treat home buyers as financial creditors during the bankruptcy resolution process. Now, for example, there is a firm there's a project, then people pay money for that, and then if that company goes bankrupt, generally it is the creditors, the lenders, who get the money during bankruptcy resolution. Now this is to protect the interest of individual home buyers, that they are customers, they are not just creditors, they are not there for profit. That has been highlighted here, right? They are not creditors but only customers. So it is unfair to push them right down the pecking order when it comes to sharing the spoils of bankruptcy. So the priority will be given to home buyers to get their money back if something goes wrong. The recent case, Supreme Court case, is very important. Many times the questions in mains are asked surrounding these cases. So the JP insolvency case, you should be aware of this. Next, you are aware of this RERA, Real Estate Regulation Act. So very important piece of information. And then, in fact, buyers have been treated as unsecured creditors till now. So this is a very positive move that has been made by the government. The next news is about data protection. Now, this article is very important because it raises a question about privacy and the present state of protection of data that exists in our country vis-a-vis Europe and vis-a-vis America. The crux of this article is India presently lacks a meaningful data protection law. But on the other hand, we have a very good judgment it is mentioned here, Puttaswamy judgment. So recently Supreme Court had said that right to privacy is a fundamental right. Secondly, the author also speaks about the European General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR, coming into effect on May 2018, so very recently. So this is very positive act which gives India even a template on which we can make our own laws. So this is discussed in this article with its positives, negatives. The author tries to analyze this in the light of the state of data protection in United States of America, which is considered very weak by this author. So the Carpenter versus United States, the case gave the doctrine called third party doctrine. It reasons that once a person turns over her data to a third party, such as a bank, her expectation of privacy ends. Now this is very dangerous. It's fortunate that Supreme Court of India in this case, right, District Register versus Canara Bank, has refuted this doctrine and rather had allowed for data protection. Recent episode of Facebook in Europe, this Cambridge Analytica, is very crucial. It relates to election of Trump and the use of data, illegal use of data. Next, this GDPR is mentioned, and other things I have already mentioned here. One is, if you allow government to frame rules for data protection, it should be ensured that the government doesn't use it for its own vested interest to make itself more opaque and unaccountable. So that is also mentioned here in the context of Right to Information Act. Right? This is important piece of information. This case is also important. So just go through all this. The next news that is important here is regarding Brexit. So the news is not important, only keywords: Brexit, European Union. You have to prepare both this, and then the Remainers versus Leavers. These are the terms that are being used in Europe, or especially UK. And this is about internal politics. We are not very concerned about it. The next news is about Maulana Abul Kalam Azad. So this can be used in GS1 as history, GS4 as ethics, because this is a personality and certain qualities that he imbibed, and then this can be used in essay, right? So all the important points are highlighted about Azad and his contribution to the freedom struggle, his weekly Al Hilal. Then his books are also mentioned here. For example, India Wins Freedom and Azad. UPSC has already asked a question on contribution of Azad to the setting up of education system in India, because he was the first education minister. So go through all this and prepare. Anyway, for ethics you need to prepare personalities. So this is one good personality that you can follow. The next news is about National Human Rights Commission. Very recently we had discussed that this is a paper tiger. So that is what is mentioned here. It's a paper tiger. This is not what we are saying. Rather, Human Rights Commission itself in Supreme Court of India had accepted that it is a toothless tiger, right? So the government is proposing to bring a new Protection of Human Rights Amendment Bill 2018. Under this, all the proposals are mentioned here. These are very crucial for the from the point of view of exam. You should prepare all this, right? And the Paris Principle. This is also something that you need to go on internet and search. Next, the news is about Sheikh Hasina, who is visiting India. Now the point is, though we speak about cultural contact between the two countries, the real concern why Sheikh Hasina is in India and what they want is the sharing of water, Tista River. Water is a very important issue for Bangladesh, and now this is something that is the point of interest for South Asia, because that Tista River sets up a template for the sharing of waters between the two countries. India is an upstream country. Always the downstream country has certain concerns, and there are nearly 54 rivers that are shared between the two countries. This so Tista is very important for Bangladesh, and not only Bangladesh, for India also. Next, this is the interview of a Bangladeshi politician, and now this envoy. So this Tista agreement, now he says that Bangladesh water is most critical factor. There is an issue about upgradation of the Ganges water barrage. Now see, Farakka barrage was 1996. At that time, Bangladesh agreed, but however, there has been an opposition regarding Farakka in Bangladesh. So you need to prepare this also. Then Hasina Singh agreement. This is Singh is Manmohan Singh, to change the narrative from sharing of waters to managing the water basin. So together, cooperation is what is highlighted here, and the issue of refugee camps, because in such camps, what breeds is radicalization. The youth is radicalized. The next article that we discuss here, which is crucial from the point of exam, is about China's foreign ministry's contradiction about the Saiz report that we discussed in yesterday's Hindu. Now, see, news is not important. What is important is this is strategic Chinese tool of creating ambiguity. So they always create ambiguity. They don't take a clear stand. So they keep you guessing, and that is something that they use as a tool to build up pressure on their enemies, so or adversaries rather. So we move to the next news. So this is about the upcoming visit of our Prime Minister to Indonesia and Singapore. What is the keyword? Actist, right? India in 90s had given a look east policy. Now India speaks about act east policy. Anyway, Singapore is considered to be the bridge to East Asia, and now India is engaging into Indo-Pacific. So visit to Indonesia and Singapore. You can see here the agreements that are being signed, defense cooperation that we speak about, S&T, then upgradation of ports, so infrastructure. Then this is a very crucial piece of information. India would soon be getting access to strategic port of Sabang on the Strait of Malacca. You know, Malacca is a choke point that is very critical for China, because world's trade as well as a lot of oil passes through Malacca. So the Chinese Malacca dilemma will be intensified when India gets strategic access to this port, strategic port of Sabang in the Strait of Malacca. The cultural connection we can be highlighting, because mythology and traditions are very similar, and the keyword again is Shangri-La dialogue. It's a defense related platform, articulate regional security issues. So Shangri-La dialogue is also a keyword. You need to prepare all this. The next news is again about the denuclearization of Korean Peninsula. The keyword here is Libya model. You know what happened in Libya? Muammar Gaddafi signed the agreement, and then he was killed by the US forces. So this is something that is being spoken in America, and that clearly is a concern for Kim Jong-un. Now, this nuclear-free peaceful world, global nuclear disarmament are keywords. Information is given here. India was the first country to, in 1988, to give to place this idea before on the floor of United Nations General Assembly about nuclear disarmament throughout the world. So the next news that we discuss here is MH17. No, this news is not important. The only thing is, many a times what happens is when caught in the crossfire, the civilians suffer casualties. That is why war is not preferable. So MH17 was a plane that was flying, and this plane was shot down during the Ukraine crisis or the Crimean crisis between Russia and Ukraine. So it is believed that Russia's Buk missiles, right, that shot down, but Russia obviously doesn't agree. So the next news is about the sonic injury. Recently there was a case where the US diplomats suffered brain injuries, traumatic brain injury because of some unusual sounds. So the news is not important. Vienna Convention, you need to prepare this convention, because this convention guides, I think it is 1962 convention, this guides the relationship between countries at diplomatic level. So very important convention. The next news is about Iran. Because of the behavior of Trump, Iran is troubled. Trump has withdrawn, or US has withdrawn from the 2015 JCPOA agreement that was signed between Iran and P5 countries plus Germany. Now what Iran wants is, Iran wants the Europeans to take ownership of this agreement in light of US withdrawal. So that is what is mentioned here. Just go through that. The next news, you all know that the whole country is angry over the prices of petrol and diesel. So the government is not looking at piecemeal steps, rather they want a long-term solution, and the solution that is in the offing is, it is said that the windfall oil tax on ONGC, so it is Oil and Natural Gas Limited. So this corporation, what they are going to do is a cess. You know, cess is over and above the taxation for a specific purpose. So they're going to have this cess the moment oil prices cross $70 per barrel. Now more than 30% or more than 70%, around 70% comes from outside, but 30% is domestically prepared or domestically produced. Despite that, international pricing, the oil pricing is such that we use international prices only. So whenever it crosses 70, the companies would be shifting on this cess, a windfall tax on ONGC. This revenues through this will be passed on to the fuel retailers so that they can subsidize the prices. So a win-win scenario. It may be accompanied by minor tinkering with excise duty rates at the central level and the state level VAT. So this is ad valorem tax. It's mentioned here. So this will be levied. Government is thinking that this will be levied not only on public but also private sector oil producers. So this is not, India is not the first country to experiment with this. UK has it, China has done this, and the point is, presently there is a reluctance on the part of finance ministry to cut excise duty, because then it upsets its budget. especially relating to social spending. So oil pricing has been an important point from UPSC exam point of view. So just go through this. The next article that is important here, the keyword is BS4 norms. So auto fuel norms were suggested by Marshekar committee. You can go through the BS1, BS2, BS3, BS4, and now government is speaking about BS5, BS6. So go through this. It is on the lines of Euro 1, Euro norms in European Union. So this is the issue of hybrid cars. Just go through this. The next is about Airports Authority of India. Now this news is not important, but in every news I've highlighted this in red. I've written the keywords. Go through them. When we speak about aviation sector, what is important is hybrid tail model and greenfield, the concepts of greenfield and brownfield projects. You need to prepare this for exam. Next, this is the power of social media, that the most powerful man on the earth, it's American president, is also fearful about people criticizing him on Twitter. So this violates First Amendment. Now you can use this as a case study in your answers. The next is about coal supply. Now this news, see, basically India depends on coal for power. Nearly 60 to 70% dependence is on coal only. Now supply priority is given to power plants. Presently the power plants are facing a shortage of coal. Because of this, government has brought out a regulation that coal through priority, it should be given only to the power plants. But the problem is many industries in India also depends on coal for their own power generation or power requirement. So here the keywords are fuel supply agreements with CIL. Most of the companies have signed such agreements which are legally binding. Next, the government last year decided to bring down coal imports for power to zero. So we are trying to increase the production through CIL, Coal India Limited, so that the power sector gets the required amount of coal. So this is the economics of coal supply. Next, we go to news regarding sports. Here there is a seeding rule. This is followed in tennis. Under the rule, players who are out of game owing to injury or pregnancy. So just go through this paragraph. That's what is important in this news. Next, the economy news about e-way bill. You know, e-way bill is when a person is or a company is transporting goods at one go, which are more than 50,000 rupees. They need to do that with e-way bill. Without that, they can't do it. So this was as a part of GST, this was brought in. The e-way bill system was first rolled out on April 1, 2018. You need to prepare this term, e-way bill. Next is the large size of human brain. The science says that originally it was believed that this large size is because of the complex social interactions that are seen in humans. But now the new research is saying that it is the way we respond to environmental stresses. Because of that, we have bigger brain size. So just go through this. It's Science and Technology, paper 3. The next news that is important here is regarding the buzzwords called 3D printing, fourth industrial revolution, artificial intelligence, autonomous drivers and autonomous boats. So this is an important news from that point of view. Just prepare it and be prepared with the keywords also. Next, the issues about depression, you know, throughout the country and throughout the globe, this is emerging as a major problem. So you need to be prepared with preliminary level, not very deep, but preliminary level preparation regarding the concept of depression, and then decline in cognitive. It's hampering relationships, mental peace and well-being of population. The next news is about NASA rover Curiosity. So this is a news which speaks about the NASA's Curiosity rover drilling Mars rocks. So the red planet, and this rover can be used in prelims. UPSC asks question on planets, agencies and the rovers or landers they have put in place. The next news is about CO2 rise may have adverse effect on rice. Now this news relates to climate change. Increasing climate change, increasing carbon emissions are hampering the production of quality or nutrient rich rice. So here current levels of CO2 are given. They are over 400 ppm, which is much more than what is safer or which is considered tolerable. Next, the vitamins are mentioned. Anyway, for science and tech, you are supposed to prepare these vitamins. Rice is going to lose vitamin contents, that is mentioned here. Now this is all from my side today. I request you to subscribe to this channel, like the video if you really love the information that I've provided. I request you to rate and share the video as much as possible. This is all from my side today. Happy studying. Thank you.